collections of poetry, including The Rural Lives of Nice Girls. And of course, we're pumping this wonderful book here, A Bone, a Vash of Ordinary Saints, a Nevada Gospel. In 2015, she was appointed Reno's first Poet Laureate. In 2016, she was inducted into the Nevada Writers Hall of Fame. And in 2017, she was selected as Nevada's Outstanding Teacher in the Humanities. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you, Gailmarie, on this book. It turned out so great. I love it. And I hope if those listening, if you get a chance, if you don't have the book, please check it out. It's fantastic. So without further ado, here's Gailmarie Pahmeier.
Yay. Thank you, Chad. That is so sweet. Also, Chad and Bonnie, if you could sort of watch the chat,
Yeah,
that would help me because, again, I get kind of distracted on that.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it for you.
Okay, I'm not very sophisticated with all of this, but I'll do my best. Well, anyway, I'm delighted to be here. And thank you, Chad and Bonnie, for hosting me. And I often think that when I give a reading that, I'm going to put it on gallery so I can see y'all. I often think I kind of need an umbrella theme. What is my theme for this particular reading? And I decided that what I'm going to do for a little while here is I'm primarily going to read what I consider to be love poems. And so we're talking about love of place, love of family, love of community, love of the essence of beauty. And then, of course, the love of baseball, all right, which is truly one of my great loves. And if you don't know this, today is the first day of spring training. So I am in a very, very happy place today, and because it represents newness and possibility to me. And so I'm going to start today with going back to a couple older poems, and one is really pretty old. And the reason I'm reading this poem, and it's from this book called The House on Break-a-Heart Road, is that the first Zoom, I'm still not good at this, but my first Zoom reading was the first week of October, last October. And on October 2nd, the great Bob Gibson passed away. And that was just a very hard day for me. He was always my very, very favorite baseball player, pitcher particularly. And I'm a member of Cardinal Nation. I'm a lifelong rabid Cardinals fan. So I decided that I have a poem that references Bob Gibson. And I decided that until I get back to Busch Stadium, where I can touch his amazing statue and honor him in some reverent way in person, that I'm going to start every Zoom reading with this poem about kind of about Bob Gibson. And so if you hear me on another Zoom say in the next few months, you can skip the first 5 minutes because it'll be this poem. Okay, but anyway, here's the poem. It's called Emma Remembers Something of the World Series. Game 7, October 12th, 1967. St. Louis 7, Boston 2. She remembers the schoolboy's envy, how her father's worn hand wrapped her own, maneuvered her through moat-filled halls, swallowed in possibility and hope. She remembers her legs, how she'd pluck them off the plastic car seats, how the hot, thick air rolled against her face, how his cigarettes left her rich and dizzy. She remembers the dusty smell of peanuts, how the old man selling them on the street winked, said, "Lucky doll," told her father, "Eats is getting outrageous inside." She remembers the sweet, wet smell of men in suits, how they stood and shook their arms, how someone spilled something on her father's shoe. Raise your hand for the soda pop man. Emma remembers her father never said, "Girl, you'll remember this all of your life." But she remembers he leaned into her again and again, pointed out players, how he touched her and taught her the language of baseball. Say walk, say everyday 8, say bat handle blooper, say crossover pivot, say Bob Gibson, say father, say daughter. So that's a little baseball moment for you, and my tribute poem to Bob Gibson, and also to my thankfully still with us father, but about 90 years old and ailing, and of course I have not been able to see him for many months. So that's another thing that I'm hoping that we will be able to return to. All right, visits with those that we love. And you know, one of the things that I truly love, and this feeds into the new book, is my state. Okay, I really love being a Nevadan. I asked about Missouri, or what I grew up saying Missouri. I asked that question because I'm originally from the Ozarks outside Joplin, and I grew up in St. Louis, but I left that place at 18. So when people say, you know, what the hell is going on with Josh Hawley? I say, I don't know. Okay. I haven't lived there since I was 18 years old. I have lived the majority of my life in Nevada, and I consider it my place. And I think you can't be a Nevadan of a certain age without either loving or knowing the movie The Misfits. And that was, it plays into the book. That was the last completed film for Marilyn Monroe and Clark Gable. And it was also, it was filmed in the desert here, and also in Reno. And it was also filmed while Marilyn Monroe and Arthur Miller's marriage was really falling apart. And do y'all trust me to try this screen share? Okay, let me see if I can do it. All right, let's see. I wanted to show you this image. This hangs in my home office here. This is a Eve Arnold print from the set of The Misfits. And this is Marilyn Monroe, who was really not in good shape, okay, during the filming of The Misfits. And this is a photograph of her in the Black Rock Desert, struggling to learn her lines, because this was the most serious and dramatic role that she had ever been offered. And I look at this when I sit to write, when I sit to work, because it reminds me that some of the things we take for granted, like beauty in humans and in landscape, is really hard. Okay, these things are really hard, and writing, all of this is really hard, but we wouldn't do it if it didn't matter to us. So let me stop this right now, get y'all back. Forgive my lack of sophistication here. So I'm going to read a poem that acknowledges Marilyn and her time in Nevada. And so if you don't know the film, it's okay. We can talk about that later, maybe if we have time in the Q&A, but I think it'll give you a little flavor here. And the poem is called Address What Matters. You know you want Marilyn's dress, not the one your mother wanted, not the rhinestone's second skin she sang his song in. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Not that dress. You want the simpler, but also sleekly tight little thing she wore here in this Nevada town. The dress she wore while drinking shots at this bar in Dayton. Cocktail cherries, halter back. You want this dress because she wore it here, but also because everyone who watched her learned of her unknown special talent, how she could wield a paddle ball 100 times and never miss a strike. Her hips, egg yolks sliding around a big bowl, kept time, and so did the men who loved her or wanted to. No one, not even Houston nor Miller, knew she could do this, could create this moment of pure carnal joy. The movie is The Misfits, and you watch it every year because it matters. Marilyn matters. This bar where you and your third husband spend long summer hours, it all matters. Everyone has a story here, and some remember Marilyn or say they do. If you had her dress, you could be fearless, could show everyone who's ever doubted that you have skill. You can shudder air. You would move with a ferocious heat like the dry desert dust, which is where, when you're done here, you're headed no matter what. Okay. Oh, sweet. Thank you. It's, I'm going to pretend we're in this really wonderful room with a fireplace. Okay. Thank you all. That was so sweet. All right. Now I want to move into this. This is, and at first I just want to say, without Chad, this wouldn't exist. Okay. He helped me make it happen. But I thought what I would do is, oh, and his staff, all of his wonderful interns and staff folk at WSC Press. But I thought that I might talk about how it came to be a little bit, and then read some pieces from it. Because of course the point is, right, that we want to support WSC Press. So I'm hoping that if you don't already have a copy, okay, that you will buy a copy. So I don't want to read too much from it, right? I kind of want to do the carrot. Yeah, I'm dangling a little carrot here for y'all. Okay, I'm going to make a kind of long story as skinny as I possibly can. About a decade ago or so, my husband retired from his design build business. And he always worked outside. So he was getting really sort of anxious, okay? Wanted to be outside for hours at a time. And, you know, I have a large yard by Reno standards, but there's not that much work to do here. So, you know, he just needed it. So he took a seasonal job at one of our state parks. And he would come home from these several hours at Washoe Lake State Park, and he would tell me these stories. You wouldn't believe what happened today. And then he would tell me a story. And then and so it became the point where I would be waiting, you know, beer in hand. Here's your beer, honey. Welcome home. Tell me what happened today and make it good. All right. I need to know these stories. And then finally I thought, well, why am I just listening to these stories? Maybe I could tell some of these stories. And then also, if I tell them as a literary artist, I can make a bunch of shit up. Okay, so I'm not a journalist. Okay, I can kind of play with this material. And so I wrote a grant to the Nevada Arts Council applying for funding. And lo and behold, they funded the project. And I mean, it wasn't huge bucks, but it was enough for me to buy a little trailer and then spend several months, as time allowed, going around the state and doing 2 to 3 day residencies in Nevada state parks. And what I would do, I put a little sign out at my campsite telling them why I was there and that I was interested in any stories they might want to share with me. And some parks, nobody spoke to me because they're there because they want to be isolated. All right. They don't really want to talk to anybody. That's the point. And then other parks, people were coming by at night and bringing a 6-pack or hot dogs. And, we were having these long conversations. And so it was primarily just a state of Nevada project, okay, for the Arts Council. And then it was, for me, personally satisfying. And then one day I'm in Portland, Oregon for a conference, and I run into my dear friends, Bonnie and Chad, and we go to lunch together and we're talking. And I just mentioned this project to Chad and I said, I'm not sure it'll have an audience outside of Nevada. And Chad's the one who said, maybe it does have an audience outside the state of Nevada. So again, blowing big kiss to both Bonnie and Chad here because you really helped make this happen. And I thought I would start with the very first poem in the book, which is not about a state park, but sort of sets the scene for the speaker's love. Back to my theme, love for the state of Nevada. And it's called First Saint Sighting, Las Vegas, 1969. We'd saved for the promise of Disneyland, first family trip outside of Missouri, long days in the hot car, treats of gum and grilled cheese at truck stops, so much to look forward to, our new shoes, hair bows. But California's covenant of ease, of dappled dreamland, startled and unsettled, the relentless madness of spinning teacups, our scuffed patent leather shoes, blistering our feet, and the heat, the heat. I took refuge in the tiki room, then the auditorium with the Lincoln robot, the quiet magic of the nearly real man, spent most of my savings in air-cooled shops. These graces were enough. Homebound Las Vegas, our father played poker, his one indulgence, a few hours in a dark and temperate casino. We girls walked Fremont Street with our mother, gazed into windows. So much, such shine. And then I saw it, the slender black cigarette holder, silver mouthpiece. Imagined the hands who'd hold this. While my sisters twirled under neon, I slipped into the shop and asked how much. $5. I had closer to $3. When the clerk asked why I wanted this, I pointed toward my mother, smoking on the corner in her faded green capris, tight turtleneck, her face tired and unmade. The clerk reached into the window, pulled the holder from its dusty display stand. Our hands touched. Close enough, she said. Okay. And I think that, and it's based on a true story, that mattered to me because it showed the kindness of strangers.
I don't know how I met.
Right? Always depended on the kindness of
He was in
strangers.
town. He was alone. So he invited me to sit with him at the lunch table.
Oops. All right. And I just wanted to show you that after that first poem, we move into images of the state of Nevada, which Chad and his staff worked really hard to get the perfect blue for me. All right. Which I was very happy with the blue in this book. And each section, it's in 3 parts. Each section begins with an image of the state of Nevada and a little bit of text, and then also a short quote from the screenplay of The Misfits. But I wanted to pause on this image of the state of Nevada for a moment. Silver and blue are our colors. Okay, so we're the silver state, so silver and blue. And then the text runs right through the middle of the state here. And the reason that's kind of important to me is because, I mean, this isn't literal, y'all, but it's close as we can get to that. This is about where Highway 50 runs across the state of Nevada. And Highway 50 is called the loneliest road in America, which is not quite so true anymore. Okay, but it's been designated as the loneliest road in America. And I think a lot of the work in the book is about loneliness and reaching out to establish a sense of community. And it also running this image here running across the middle indicates sort of north and south. And anyone who's spent any time in Nevada might realize that we have a real north-south division. I'm trying to be gracious. I'm trying to be nice here. Okay. I mean, I forget sometimes when I go to Las Vegas, I'm like, where am I? Okay. It is a completely different world. A writer friend of mine, Willie Vlaughton, said he will never stop writing about the state of Nevada as long as it's anything north of Tonopah, which would be about here. So he doesn't even consider this really the true Nevada. So what does it mean to be part of something and then not part of something? So that's sort of what I was going for there. And you guys did a beautiful job with this, by the way. Some of the poems in here they don't take place at the park. They take place in the surrounding communities. For example, like in a restaurant or a diner, but associated with the park. So I'm also addressing some of the communities around Nevada state parks. So I thought I'd take you to, again, because I just took you a minute ago to Dayton, Nevada, I'm going to take you again to Dayton, Nevada. And this is called Roadrunner Cafe, Dayton, Nevada. Day after Thanksgiving, your friends gone home, the leftovers left behind, pecan and sweet potato pies given to the ranger. He's grateful for these treats, his holiday dinner eaten alone, your invitation declined. He lives all year in the park, has a spot under the oldest cottonwood. You ask about breakfast, and he recommends the Roadrunner, thick bacon, fresh eggs. The waitress has her arms full of platters, eggs in all their glories, bouquet of sausage and the promised bacon, wedges of orange, sprigs of parsley, and more potatoes. You will thank the ranger for this place, for its dusty leatherette booths, its music. When the waitress brings your order, she's swaying along to Steve Miller. Really love your peaches, wanna shake your tree. You too love this song. Remember being 17, the urgent crossing of state lines, the sweetest boy beside you, how you both sang this dozens of times, 8 eggs and white toast at truck stops. Your bare feet resting on his thighs, the booth your private place, chapel of possibility. Both of you were certain then this sort of freedom was pure covenant, plenty of gas, decent meals, an unknown road, someone to run with forever ever. Amen. You didn't think to be thankful. It was just eggs. Okay. Okay. Oh, sweet. Thank you. Also, I think what happens with every book is that a particular poem has a life of its own. Okay. It becomes the poem that anthologists asked you for, or people requested a reading. And sometimes it's not the poem you think it's going to be. You think, well, this is my favorite poem. So whenever I give a reading, I'm going to read this particular poem. And then the request will be for something quite other. And there is a poem in this collection that kind of has a life of its own already. And it's right in the middle of the text. It begins part 2 of the collection. And the quote from the Misfits is by the character Isabel Steers. And the quote is, "One thing about this town, it's always full of interesting strangers." Okay, which I just think is a wonderful line. The poem is called "Where Do You Go from Tonopah?" And what happened recently is the Nevada has a Hall of Fame, and we have an annual ceremony, the Nevada Writers Hall of Fame. And we induct writers into the Hall of Fame and also award something called the Silver Pen Award for emerging or mid-career writers. And this year, of course, it was virtual, like everything is. I got a call from the people who were putting it together, and they said they wanted to have a poem represented in the program that several of Nevada's honored writers could read a line or two from, and that after they looked around, they decided they wanted this poem. Where do you go from Tonopah? So I think we're gonna, it's about, well, it would take me about 2.5 minutes to read. It takes them about 2.5 minutes to read. And it's, I go back and forth between loving it and thinking it's totally a creepy thing. So I don't know how I feel about it, but we're going to go ahead and show it to you so you can see how this poem sort of took off and became its own thing. So Bonnie or Chad or whomever's going to run this, we can do it now.
Can you see it okay?
I can.
Okay, here we go then.
By Gailmarie Pahmeier. Because the Miss Paw Hotel has clawfoot tubs, this is where you stop.
The place has its own ghost. A good story about the lady in red.
It said she was murdered here, discovered by her husband in the arms of her young love.
She'd have lived to wear her lace and heels if it hadn't been for the train being late.
Her husband missing his connection, stopping in for a cold drink, seeing her, seeing him ascend the steep stairs.
In Nevada, it's always about trains, drinks, connections missed and made, and wholly imagined.
Because you're told Tonopah is for those with a thirst for adventure, you venture to the long shod bar.
Order steaks, a fine red wine, and arguably the best margarita between Reno and Las Vegas.
Listen to some old man chat up the young couple from Henderson who say this is the farthest north they've been exploring their new state.
Transplants from Atlanta. The old man says, this is the real Nevada, but suggests they also make Elko, Winnemucca, decent towns he's fond of, would live in, given...
And because you love books and the beauty of dust, you'll spend hours wandering the dense aisles of Whitney's bookshelf.
Where paperbacks are $1, hardbacks $2. And what you'll take home is a first edition hardback John Gardner's on moral fiction.
Inside is a personal inscription, June 1978. Bob, it says, keep writing in New York City.
Thanks for all your help.
these years in Tonopah. Best of luck. I'll miss you here. Love.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. Okay, thank you for doing that for me. I hope you could hear it okay. Yeah, those are some of my colleagues and my co-writers, not co-writers particularly, but my literary friends and family here in Nevada. So that was really kind of a delight and an honor. And like I said, at some point, apparently the Nevada Writers Hall of Fame committee ended up getting a lot of people requesting copies of it. And they said things like it was moody. They liked it because it was moody, okay, which I guess is a compliment. I don't know. It was moody and truly Nevada, which I thought was kind of interesting. And I wanted to note that there was kind of a flatness in the rendering of that poem. And that was a challenge for me throughout the book, because what I was trying to do is represent the landscape and the people I encountered on this landscape with language that did not embellish or wasn't hyperbolic in any way. And so there is in many of the pieces what I would call an intentional flatness to some of the language. And I did have one of my blurb writers on the back, it's Willie Lawton, and he was one of the readers in that short video. He said to me once, he said, I think I'm the only one who's going to get that, Gailmarie. I said, well, maybe you're the only one who gets it, but I don't think so. I think anybody who kind of reads literature of the West might be able to get there. All right, what I'm going to do, I'm watching my time here. I'd like to read, let me flip over. I'm going to read, excuse me, I'm going to try to squeeze in 2 more from the book and then maybe close with a new poem and then open it for any Q&A that we might have. Does that sound like a good plan? All right, let me watch this. Okay, I'm at South Fork State Park, and I'm thinking about my family and people I miss. So here's the poem. It's called Letter to Lara from South Fork. Allow me these Hugo moments, my own little triggering towns. After your call, in search of good wine, we drove into Spring Creek, bought a case of layer cake at Coorey's Market. You'd love the place, established nearly 40 years ago, the year of your birth. The promise Gus and Sam have made will never ask you to ring up or bag your own groceries. Reminds us of our simpler past. How amazed I was just hours ago to hear your voice coming in clear from Amsterdam on this sleepy Sunday. I remember the long wait for Sundays, calls home to St. Louis, cheaper and somehow more meaningful. Those were days of true long distance. I'd call my father, catch him listening to his transistor in the blistering square of his backyard, Falstaff in hand, the sprinkler tearing his tomatoes. We never spoke long. Last night, I listened to the Cardinals game, here where the Ruby Mountains tower in the distance, and the insistent wind makes the cool of the Humboldt River true scent. It was a close game. I should have called my father, but the distance is long still. Did I tell you we bought carnations at Coorey's Market? Spread some ashes before we drank a bottle of the wine, toasted you and your own adventure. We wish you pure pleasure in your distance. Okay, thanks. You know what, one thing I didn't actually mention, when I was organizing this manuscript, I think you have to have a sort of a narrative premise, okay? So the narrative premise for the collection is this. A couple, and you know, if you want to make it literal, it's me and my husband, but a couple has lost their beloved dog. The dog has died, and they've been living with the dog's ashes in a paint can in their laundry room. And so they decide to go on a road trip throughout the state of Nevada and sprinkle the ashes of the dog at the various sites. And so they'll know where the dog is when they go back to visit. And also they're sharing their love of this dog with a place that they love. So there are poems that mention spreading ashes, and that's what that's all about. So I'm going to read one of the very last poems in the collection, which this is one I don't think I've read at all, at least in a Zoom, okay, situation. So, oh my God, it might bomb. I haven't tried it out before, so we'll try it. It is the penultimate poem in the collection. It's called Red, White, Blue, Pink, and Blue Again. On the final night of your stay, you'll walk the loop of Berlin ichthyosaur to check out who's pulled in. You're beginning to feel like these remote parks belong to you. Know you'll return, of course, to visit the secret spots where you've left ash of the dead dog. You'll also return just to hear the human sounds, how voices carry in quiet places when people think nobody's listening, but you are. Listen to the two little girls on their pink bikes, purple tires with matching streamers. They whisk by you as you walk. They are chanting, red, white, blue, we love you. The youngest is wearing red cowboy boots and a straw hat. Last night, they walked with their father, an old dog limping along behind them, the dog's slipping hip painful to see. Last night, no chanting, but they did recite the Pledge of Allegiance over and over and over. Listen to the large party from Story County who set up satellite dishes, blast country music, Randy Travis. You haven't thought of Randy Travis in years, once loved his voice of velvet and pearl. They are roasting chicken, will invite their nearest neighbor to join them, the gray-haired woman from Texas who wears sweatpants under a batik house dress. Listen to the woman from Goldfield, where she's lived the last 5 years with her family of 2 kids and 2 dogs. She's telling the man from Minden how they lived in their 5th wheel for 4 years. And as she speaks, she swings her long hair, long enough to sit on. The man says he's a native, born in 1942 in St. Mary's. He'll leave her a Rotary Club card and wish her well. On the last night of your pilgrimage, you'll drink lots of red wine. Grill steaks you know would bring the old dog running. From somewhere in the park, hear the crackle of radio. Know the Rangers are making their last rounds and will wave. Soon, the sweet smell of dying fires will ease you towards your own rest. The last voice you'll hear is one singing, barely a whisper. So that's where I'm going to end for the book, because I want you to support WSC Press and get a copy of that. I'm going to close with one poem from a new project. And if I explain the project to you too much, that'll take me 10 minutes and there won't be any time for any chatting. But essentially, this is my inspiration. this little book. It's called The Field Guide to Tools. Oh, who'd have thunk? I found it on the dollar table at a bookstore in New Mexico. The bookstore was called Tome on the Range. You gotta love that. And I told my husband, if you buy that, it was on the dollar table. If you buy that for me, I'll get poems out of it. He was very skeptical. And so I got to prove I can do this, right? So they're weird because the trigger for the poem and the generated is, and the triggering subject and the generated subject actually both appear in the poem. So some of the language is from that book, and then the poem takes off from there. So this is my closing poem today. It's called Work Boots. The general description: like other shoes, work boots cover your feet. Unlike high heels, they are designed to prevent pain in your toes. Variations: in the absence of work boots, choose motorcycle boots or Doc Martens, maybe sneakers, never sandals. Toolkit minimum: 1 pair of tan, leather, steel-toed work boots. Work boots. Say your name is Bob or Brad or Don or Travis or Mabel or Thelma or Donna. You might own these tan boots or know someone, perhaps someone you love, who keeps these boots by the back door. It's a screen door, and every evening when the boot wearer returns, it slaps shut, its spring hinged tight and competent. Silence follows, carries through supper of meatloaf, butter-baked apples. If you count not talking as communication, which it is, enough of the long day is uttered in the fine dust in the deep treads of the boots. If it's Friday and the week has come to matter in a wad of rolled bills, you might consider a cold beer at the VFW, where a girl named Charmaine tends, wears heels a bit too tight for her toes, shoes she bought at the Lutheran thrift store. The ladies there, so often sweet, seem so. When the college kids arrive in their docks and high tops and their wispy sandals, there will be dancing, but you'll take your leave for home, where your boots live, where you can shuffle sock-footed across the linoleum, where the radio plays a little Cash and a lot of Jesus. That's it for me. Okay. Oh, thank you. That's sweet. So I'm turning it back over to Bonnie and Chad, I guess, or anybody.
That was fabulous.
Well, that's great.
I don't know if we have very much in the chat room, but I can chat.
So can I. So can I have a question for her as well?
Okay, go ahead, Bonnie. I'll answer your question if I can.
Maybe I can get them started, huh? So I can't imagine how many poems you have scrolled on paper and napkins and all sorts of things throughout your life, and Word documents and word processors and all sorts of things. Do you have one poem that stands out to you? And if so, why? Why did it make such a strong impact on you?
Okay, oh my gosh, that is really a difficult question. Well, if I had to answer it immediately today, I would say it was the World Series Bob Gibson poem, only because it matters to me so much. And then also it's kind of also a tribute to my father introducing me to the love of baseball. And that, you know, there are these little things that you do carry throughout your life that perhaps at the moment of experiencing don't seem that they will have that sort of impact. But oh boy, I don't know. There's another poem in that book, Break a Heart, that it's called, what is it called? When You Love Someone for a Long Time. And my friend, and many of you know him because he's been at WSC before, Dave Lee, the poet Dave Lee, has read that poem for me. I mean, I wasn't there, but he's read it in 44 different states. So it kind of has its own life now. And I think that's and of course, he doesn't read it anyway. It sounds like a very different poem, right, when he reads it. Because I have actually asked him when I've been with him before, well, I want you to read it to me so I can hear it in your voice. I don't know. That's a toughie.
I think you answered it.
Okay.
You did good. Thank you.
But you know what? If you ask me again, like next week, I'm going to say something completely different.
Let's see here. Ooh, I have one person here who's wondering, what was one poem you had a hard time writing and why?
From the book, maybe? Oh, I can tell you exactly which one. From the book, actually there are two, but I'll just pick this one. From the book, it would be, if anybody has the book, it would be page 60, Shady Motel, Caliente, and actually it's Caliente in Nevada, because they busted me constantly when I was saying Caliente. No, Caliente. Shady Motel, Caliente, Nevada, because it it references Warren Jeffs, who was, imprisoned for essentially pedophilia and abusing young women in his sect by marrying 12-year-olds off to 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old men. So that was tough. But I felt like I had to include it. And because Caliente it's so beautiful. It is stunningly beautiful, but there is something that just hovers over that little town, and you can really sense it in the air that something not so pretty has happened here. And so that was tough for me to do, I think.
Thank you. There's another question here. How has the pandemic changed your view of or relationship to the land?
Okay, well, wow, I love that question. Well, it's changed it dramatically because I don't go anywhere. Okay. I really go nowhere. I mean, well, I have an autoimmune condition, so I have to be particularly cautious. I'm getting my first shot tomorrow, so I'm nervous as hell about it, but I'm also kind of, I want this to happen. I'm excited about it too. So I've really been isolated. And I'll tell you what, at the beginning of the shutdown, I thought it was the coolest thing ever because, self-isolation is one of my superpowers. I mean, I remember one sabbatical, my husband made a rule that said every 5 days I had to leave the house because I was just so happy being in my own space and reading and writing on my own time and eating when I wanted to. But I'll tell you what, that's fun for a while. And then, of course, even people who are, adept at self-isolating, it becomes so difficult. So I really, except for, we went to we have a cabin in the mountains. So it's about a 2.5 hour drive from Reno, up at 8,200 feet elevation. So it's really up there and isolated and off grid. And I went a couple of times in the fall up there. And it was like being I'd forgotten what it was like, to be sort of like out where I could just walk around. I mean, we have 40 acres, so there's nobody around, where I could just walk around and be unmasked and play with my dogs. But yeah, it's been really hard. It's been really hard. I want to get back out. I'm just so eager to get back out. I actually did have my husband set up the trailer, which is parked on the other side of our house here, and put out some chairs and like a, you know, so I just wanted to sit in my trailer, even in my own yard, because I missed going out in it. And, you know, I had friends who made fun of this project at first when I applied for the funding. Not the book. Everybody loves the book. And again, thank you, WSC Press. But they were teasing me about the project because they said, Gailmarie, you could have written a project and gone to Paris. And I said, I don't want to go to Paris. I want to go to Nevada State Parks. Okay, that's kind of where my heart is. That's where I want to go. And they just thought, you know, oh my God, this woman is nutcase. But I really want to get back out there. I'm really looking forward to doing that. Okay. And there are so many that I want to return to. And I did not go to every state park. I just could. I had to finish the project within 2 years, the actual research, I guess you would call it, going out to the parks. And, you know, with teaching and other obligations, I couldn't get to all 22, but I got to a sampling of them from north, south, east, west throughout the state. But yeah, and I'm just like, I don't know. You know, I guess I'm paler because I'm not out in the sun. I don't know. But yeah, it has changed. I miss it. I miss it. I'm actually very interested. I'm primarily interested in narratives about people. I'm not a landscape poet. I'll never be a landscape poet. But getting out into the communities and listening to people talk is important to me. So, does that help?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
We got time for one more, maybe?
Yeah.
No, you gotta run off here. Just a few, like, what keeps you inspired to keep writing poetry? Another one's asking about writer's block. Maybe just talking about writing. I know I got some students on here. They always want to know any advice.
Okay. Well, I don't believe in writer's block, but I believe in my innate sloth. Okay. So, I mean, sometimes writer's block is just saying, well, I'm lazy, you know, or I don't want to do this. I'd rather be watching an episode of Columbo, you know, and I have made those choices, I will confess. But I also believe that if you're whatever you're doing, as long as you have a pencil and paper in your hand at the same time, you are sort of working. So even if I'm watching, I'm just throwing Columbo out here, but even if I'm watching an episode of Columbo, if there's some bizarre line and I write it down, or it helps me think about something, because Columbo is a series about the working class versus the elite, if you really analyze it. And I'm interested in issues of class. So I might take a little note there. Whew, that was a hard work day. Okay. It's like that was kind of it. But you know, there's just too much to inspire us, and there are so many good books. My class this semester is using this one. I don't know, Poet's Companion. I love this book.
We're using that.
Oh, I love it. I love Kim and Dorian, and I love this book. And there are what, Chad, about 100 different exercises in there. I haven't even done them all. And, you know, and I've used the book since it first came out. So I always think there are places to go to get that. Why do I continue to write poetry as opposed to other genres? That's really a very long story because I did start as a fiction writer, so I won't tell you the full story, but I will say, you know, I like little tight gems of beauty. Sandra Cisneros once said, and if those of you are familiar with her book, The House on Mango Street, and it's a novel in little vignettes. Some of them are only a paragraph long. And she said, everybody who works hard deserves to come home and have a paragraph of beauty waiting for them. And I think a poem is just a tightly wrought piece of beauty. Not that I don't love I love short stories. Don't tell my novel writing friends I'm not a huge fan of the novel, and it may be because I'm getting old and I don't have that much time. Like, with a novel, baby, if I'm not completely hooked in 50 pages, even if my best friend wrote it, that's it. I'm moving on. And so I don't know. I just want to honor those, the way language and experience can be compressed. I guess that's what I would say. So I think we're kind of there. I don't know. Okay, well, thank you all so much. This was delightful and just a joy. Okay, I wish I could be there. And I expect to be there. Although I'm really glad that I'm not there in this cold. So I'm nice in my toasty house here, but I'm looking forward to seeing y'all. I love y'all. I just think you have a very special community, and I'm honored to be kind of the you know, gray-headed stepchild, all right, of your community. So thank you so much. And thank you, Chad. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, WSC Press. So love you all. And I have to teach a class, so I'm going to get off here, but I'll talk to Bonnie and Chad maybe soon, and we can try to get together, okay, somehow. And anybody, really, maybe we'll have a Zoom party some Saturday afternoon when we don't have to work. Goodbye, y'all. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Gailmarie.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Chad. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
There she goes.
There she goes. Yes, to teach.
All right. Well,
looks like everybody enjoyed the reading. Lots of thank yous out there. She will see those.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.